There's no shortage of people wanting to offer advice. It's actually the largest growing category in the world of literature, having almost doubled in size over the last decade. Online blogs overflowing with success stories of people faced with challenges and how, if you do what they did, you could overcome your challenges as well. Giant seminars from financially wealthy individuals who are willing to tell you the secret to their personal success, for a small fee, of course. Among all the noise, the question arises, how do you separate good advice from the rest of the noise? It's hard to tell, because even bad advice from good-intentioned sources seems helpful at best or harmless at worst. But the truth is, there's a lot to consider before you should begin to ask others for their input. And I'll start this section off by saying this channel is not exempt from these kinds of issues. There are a wide array of YouTube channels that will try to offer you the solution to some kind of problem, or will very readily hand out advice on issues they may actually know very little to nothing about. My goal in making this channel is to address problems by offering several different approaches or a variety of constructive tips to better help you address your own issues, rather than give generic advice and pretend like it broadly applies to certain problems. There are some great channels out there, and some YouTube content creators are really worth your time and attention. However, just because a channel has appealing characteristics, like a lot of views, high production values, or an attractive speaker, doesn't always mean they have a firm understanding of the subject material they're discussing. So with that, let's discuss the first point, the source that's giving advice. If you're taking financial advice from somebody talking into their phone inside their car, you're probably not getting the best advice. Similarly, if you're listening to a CEO talking about the technical aspects of a job, he's probably not the best person to talk to either. You need to be able to identify mentors who are currently engaged with and are familiar with the kinds of issues you're struggling with, or from people who have recent experiences with those issues. This can be really tricky when getting advice from family members or friends, and that's going to be a whole different video in the future. But for now, we'll try to keep things within the realm of professional advice. We wouldn't have any problem talking to a doctor about a medical concern because we see that person as a valuable source of information. But talking to a former doctor who retired 10 or more years ago gives you a slight risk of getting outdated information. Considering how fast the world has changed, even in the past 20 years, it becomes so much more important to find teachers and mentors who are more familiar with the kind of relevant information regarding your current problems. Which brings us neatly to our second point, the experiences of the advisor. There are a lot of different jobs and industries out there. Some advice is more helpful in certain settings than others. An accountant, banker, or financial planner would be a great resource for a financial institution or a similar desk job. However, more industry-specific jobs, typically referred to as blue-collar jobs, like culinary, agriculture, manufacturing, would require different skills and education to be successful in the field. Now, I'm not saying one kind of work is easier or better than the other. It's important for you to identify what kind of work you enjoy and to find fields and industries that would allow you to use your skills. What I'm emphasizing is that you should try to find people who work in similar fields to give you a better idea about how to work and grow as an employee in those fields. A business owner with a chain of restaurants under their belt might be able to give you great advice about how to manage accounts, maintain tax records, or similar duties, but the same person likely has little to no knowledge about how to cook or maintain their restaurant and staff. They hire managers and cooks to do the jobs that they themselves don't know how to do as well. If you want to learn how to succeed in a business or industry, you need to learn from the people who are responsible for fulfilling duties to a job field. Which takes us to our final point, you. This is by far the most important aspect when it comes to taking job advice, and the reason is simple. You can receive the best advice, the most compelling logic, and persuasive reasoning to do something, anything. But if that advice is not palatable, if you're not willing to follow through on what you've been told to, if you don't have the material resources, time, or desire to follow through on that advice, it's probably not good advice. I'm not applying this concept to general laziness. Anyone can simply choose not to commit to a plan when given good advice. What I'm saying is, you can't enact a strategy that you know you can't follow through on. For example, what if you were trying to find a way to start saving money, and my advice to you was that you live on less than $100 a week and put the rest towards long-term savings and investments? Now, there's no doubt you would save a lot of money, and your investments would likely grow rapidly. But how realistic would it be for you to live on less than $100 a week? My guess is that you would likely struggle a lot. For most people, that would possibly cover the cost of a single bill. Groceries, utilities, rent, gas, the list goes on and on. How realistic would such advice be? What kinds of drastic changes would you have to make in order to enact such a strategy? A more realistic piece of advice may be to try to set aside 20% of each paycheck and allocate it into things like emergency funds, long-term savings, or investments. This advice is much easier to follow because the plan is more realistic and has the added benefit of being more flexible. For example, if you got paid on a cycle that fell on your birthday, you could be flexible enough to save a little less and splurge a little more as part of your celebration. If you stuck to the original plan and tried living on $100 a week, you probably wouldn't be able to celebrate much at all because your budget doesn't factor for entertainment spending. These are just a few examples, and hopefully by now you have a better understanding that this kind of material is not only very intricate, but very personable. People generally try to be helpful when giving advice, but hopefully now you have some tools to help you better discern what advice you'd benefit from and what advice not to take. What's some helpful advice you received but maybe didn't take? Has there been a time when you got good advice from an unlikely source? Let us know down below in the comments. I'm always interested to hear your insights and ideas regarding each topic, and you're always welcome to leave a thoughtful comment below. If you haven't already, please hit the bell icon and subscribe to my channel. I try to make at least a couple of videos a month, and that helps to make sure you're notified when new content becomes available. Also, if you enjoyed these videos, please be sure to hit the like button. Knowing what content you enjoy helps me make more meaningful videos in the future.